just put it on the chat. Just share it with me. It also helps guide my thoughts as I'm giving this particular talk or session, which will center largely on emotional intelligence. And as you do that, let me share a little bit about who I am and what we do even at Profiles International. And I think I haven't renamed myself, but I work a lot in the area of training and facilitation, and I teach a lot on the area of emotional intelligence. I believe when the first time I encountered EI, for me, it was as much life-changing for me as it is for the people that I teach EI to. And I felt that it is a skill sometimes that is I mean, it's a buzzword. Everyone speaks about emotional intelligence. It's thrown around everywhere. But the real meaning and understanding around what it really is and how you develop it, sometimes that is not always apparent. And so as a person, I have dedicated a lot of my time to speaking about it. I also train various corporates. I incorporate it in my leadership training. So I train for leadership, I train for management, I train for culture. I work with human resource professionals and business executives to really think through about the areas of the people that they manage. So we do this at Profiles International, and we started out by delivering psychometric assessments. Why? Because we also firmly believe in the art of self-reflection. And we think that self-reflection is the best way to start giving solutions, sustainable solutions to the things that are happening. And we want to offer that chance, not just to you as a person, but even to organizations to really get meaningful information and data that they can use to provide their people with meaningful ways of growing. So we also upskill, we train where there are gaps, and we help organizations upskill. And our newest addition is our digital learning platform, where we help organizations scale their learning. So provide a more cost-effective way of ensuring that the people who are working with you are trained holistically. And they have access, whether it's on the phone, whether it's on the laptops, at any time. And I think digital is the way to go. So that's a bit about Profiles. If you want to know more about us, I believe I have Liz on the call with me. She's going to put up our social media handles as well as our website, where you can get more information. And also you can get information around the courses that we teach, because we do have 90 minutes is not enough really to talk about emotional intelligence. This is an awareness course, but if you want to delve deeper into EI and the various modules that focus on EI, we do have a course called Lead, Empower, and Thrive, which you can then take up. It's fully digital, and then it can obviously help enhance and grow this skill called emotional intelligence. So I've seen some things coming up, raising holistic. If I can just yes. So I can just sample a few. Raising holistic children. Yeah, that's one of them, raising holistic children. Being able to parent differently, be in charge of my emotions. Isn't that what we all want when it comes to children? Engage the father of my children, understand my children's emotions and meet them at their point of need. Yes, how to navigate bringing up a young adult and two teenagers who are almost always moody, setting me on edge. And then we have someone who says, I'm looking forward to knowing how to identify when one is applying emotions only and not emotions intelligence, and how to recalibrate. That's the Kikuyu in me. And then how can one ensure that co-parenting doesn't affect the children they are bringing? What is emotional intelligence, and how do I, as a single mom, know myself and therefore be able to help my children be emotionally intelligent? Wonderful. So we're centering our conversations around our children, and that's a good thing. And I can see also there's co-parenting there discussed. So let me share my slides, because I will be doing a slideshow, and once in a while I'll put it off so that we can have a conversation. Just trying to see what I have missed. Advanced. No? Okay, I always thought I could share a part of my screen, but okay. So let me know when you see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay. So this particular session is dubbed emotional, the power of emotional intelligence in the journey of motherhood. And motherhood, what is motherhood? Motherhood is, I think, one of the greatest gifts that you can have on this earth. And I think also fatherhood too, both of them, to steward young people who come in and you are their custodian for just a short time before they then move on to do other things in life. And there is a video that was circulating, and I hope you've had the chance to see it. There was a gentleman, I can't remember who he is, but it keeps coming back to my feed on TikTok. And he talks about how we as parents, more than any other generation that they have studied, we are really trying to engineer our children. We want them to be the greatest Mozart that there ever was, because now we have a Mozart we can compare. So we want another Mozart in our children, want them to be a great engineer, a pilot, or whatever it is. And he talks about that this engineering is actually what ruins our children, because already there was something that was planted in your kids that is more powerful than you will ever know. And they have a different set of called what? Genetics. And they're molded uniquely, they themselves. And they have, of course, things that they will call their purpose. And he says that our role here on earth, and I think we all know this, we know this deeply in ourselves, even if we don't we might not say it, is to steward and to guide and to be a shepherd unto our children, and so that then we are able to create environments for them where they can thrive. But it's not as easy as that when we say you let go of your child, let go of the outcome. So today we'll try and explore how emotional intelligence can support the emotional, mental, and relational well-being of mothers, because we know we as mothers and as fathers as well, we juggle a lot of complex things. But I think as mothers, because we're sort of the primary caregiver in most situations, there are situations where we have men being the primary caregivers, but in most situations, as is my situation as well, where I am the first primary contact, and a lot of time was required for me to spend with my children, nurturing them through whatever it is that they were going through, and of course all the things that came with all that. So I want us to start with a very short exercise that I always do for all the audiences that I talk to. I want you to close your eyes for a few minutes. I just want you to close them, and if you're sitting down, I want you to place your feet on the floor, flat on the floor. And then I want you to relax. Wherever you are, I want you to relax. So as I'm telling you to relax, just try and feel what part of your body is not relaxed. Which part of your body feels tense? Or even now that I have brought this to your attention, are you sitting awkwardly? Are you sitting in a relaxed way? Is your back straight? Is it slouching? Are you on a couch? Some of your organs are possibly complaining. Then I want you to just breathe in and breathe out, and focus on the breath in and focus on the breath out. Breathe in and breathe out. As you do this exercise, try and think, how many emotions have you experienced over the last few hours? And if you can count them on your hand, please do so. Focus on how many emotions have you felt over the last few hours. Then on my count, I want you to come back to the session. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, great. So how many were you able to come up with? How many emotions have you felt over the last few hours? Was it one? And even for the lady who's ironing, were you able to think back and just think about how many emotions have you experienced over the last few minutes? Yes, I can see we have 4. Joy says 4. We have someone else who has said 7. We have someone who's even given us words. There are 5: anger, frustration, worry, anxiety, and pressure. We have 3 from Grace. We have 3 from Angela. We have 3. We have a lot of 3s. 3, 5, 4. Anyone who's gotten more than 10, we have 5, 3, 3, 5. Anyone who's gotten more than 10, you can post. Okay, so all of the emotions are centering around 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5. Good. That's a great exercise. Now, the exercise we just did was a simple way of bringing ourselves back to the moment, bringing ourselves back to the present. And it is a great exercise. And why we use the breath is because the breath is with you everywhere you go. And we do it sometimes all the time without realizing it if you don't practice it. I know there must be people here who practice it regularly. When you're told, take a few deep breaths before you say something or do something, that's the practice of using your breath to anchor you back in the present. But the breath, what it really does is that immediately you start taking a deep breath in, and sometimes you can even count, and then you take it out, and it's intentional, it's purposeful. Science says that it actually slows our internal organs down. They say it activates something called, I think, the parasympathetic side of our nervous system. Our heart slows down. If our eyes were dilated, they come back to normal. Basically, we stop reacting. We move from pressure. We come back to the place of bold, what do we call it? Openness, open to experience. And so, from a very fundamental level of your body, the action of intentionally and actively slowing down your breath and focusing on your breath helps your own body, be able to come back to the place now where you can be. If you are angry, you're more logical. For me, when I'm very overwhelmed, I have 3, 4, 5 things. I don't even know what they are because, you just feel the feeling, You feel the feeling of overwhelm. That's the feeling you feel. And it starts confusing you. And that's the beginning of what we call emotional awareness, which is a very critical skill. I'm overwhelmed. That's a feeling. And what's my likely go-to when I'm overwhelmed? I don't know what yours is, but mine is I end up working on everything and anything, and I have no clear direction. And sometimes I can hyperventilate or get very, very anxious. And the truth is just taking that breath, stopping and just taking that breath with nothing else. And then asking myself after about 5, 6 breaths, what are the feelings? What am I really feeling? What are my emotions? And naming those emotions one by one helps me to actually understand which emotion is actually troubling me at that moment. And sometimes, a lot of the times, actually, I find it is fear. I don't know why fear is a constant one. And I know personally that I am an anxious person. I've always been an anxious person. And I have learned over time to be able to manage my anxiety actively. So I will feel fear. And then I can then start asking myself, why am I afraid? Sometimes you're afraid because of very little things. Sometimes you're afraid because of things that have not happened and possibly will not happen. But there's a narrative you're telling yourself in your head. And the beginning of cultivating that awareness, naming that emotion, and then going deeper to recognize that emotion investigate it. Don't just leave it. What we do is we are great at speaking. I'm angry. So fine, you're angry. Yeah, we all get angry. We all get tired. We all get demotivated. We can name all the emotions and we can tell them to people. But the million-dollar question always is, why are you angry? And that is why I think it was Aristotle who said to be angry is easy, but to be angry at the right time, with the right person, at the right place. He had so many rights. Whatever that is not so easy, because our emotions, we carry them everywhere and they can come out from whatever it is. If I experience an emotion today and I don't express it, and it is something that is troubling me deeply, tomorrow I'll have it wherever it will be, whether it's happiness or whatever it is, something I did not resolve. And when it comes out, it compounds. So let's say I'm afraid that I haven't paid school fees, for instance. That's a fear that I have constantly. Will I pay school fees this term? When I come to work, and that is the question on my mind, because it will be there, yeah. When I'm aware of it, I can see how it's going to play out in my work. Most of the times, it means that I'm going to be very cautious in the decisions that I make here at work. It also means that I might not be as warm to people as I want to. That day is a day, if someone decides to test my patience, they might see that side of me that, is a bit cut. But the response that I'm giving to this person has not as much to do with what they're doing or saying, but even more to do with what I'm feeling and my fear of the fact that, will I meet these terms fees? Am I well placed to meet these terms fees? But knowing that that is an emotion, that is something that is driving fear in me. When I land at the office, then I can do a mental check. Okay, we are scared. Can we move that worry to 4 p.m. today? Because we have things that we have to attend to, and we have things that we have to intentionally decide that we're going to attend to. 2 months ago, something happened in my business that caused me a lot of fear. And not that I wasn't aware of it, but I just wasn't aware of how much it impacted on the things that I chose to do for those 2 months. And sitting back here after sitting and talking to one of my business coaches, and we're going through my activities for the business. And then I realized in those 2 months, I did not go out to meet clients as often as I do. I did not sell because I was afraid. So even the selling, there was that fear, I'll be rejected. I didn't want to be rejected at those 2 months. I'm just trying to show real life experiences of sometimes how we carry emotions and we don't see how they're playing out even in the choices that we're making in life. But looking back at the activities that I was doing and the things that I was meant to do, I could see the impact of what that did. I'm thinking in my mind, why should I even do this? After all, I don't know if maybe the following day this will be there. Yet, if it is there, it is something I should have done. So the first place that we always should start when we're talking about emotional intelligence is to be aware that our emotions affect us so much. In fact, they say that about 90% of your life is dictated by emotions. And I'd like to even say it's even more than that. When they talk to you about selling, they talk about people buy from emotions. They make the decision 80% of the time from emotions. So the place of emotions, and even from what we know about the neuroscience of emotions are very powerful things that we have not learned to pay attention to. And they impact daily on the decisions that we make. So when you don't feel an emotion, whether you're aware of it or not, you actually find it hard to make a decision. So they are impacting on your decisions on a daily. They impact your behavior, how you choose to show up. And a simple example here is if we are angry, that's the easiest emotion to use. You know how you show up. If we don't like someone, you should know what your default behavior is. For example, if I don't like something, for example, if my husband does something in the house that I don't like, there's a default behavior that I have. It's automatic. And even there are even default words that come after that. It's like a print. It's like a what? I've been programmed. Yeah. And there is also prediction on performance. Even the way that you perform, the way you feel is directly linked to the way you perform. You feel excellent, you feel optimistic, you feel open, your performance goes up. You feel angry, you feel anxiety, you feel confusion, you feel uncertainty, you don't know that to go left and right. I think that's a really terrible emotion. Your performance shows because you don't want to engage. In fact, they say when we feel emotions that we don't like, we narrow and limit our options. We narrow and limit our options. And in fact, what we end up doing is we react instead of responding to our options. So I'm walking down the corridor and I see someone I don't like. My first immediate reaction is to turn and move somewhere else and go to another direction. I don't even have to think about it. My body reacts for me. Yeah. I don't want to engage my brain into thinking, maybe this person could be useful. Maybe tomorrow you never know where they might be. They might actually provide my children with an opportunity for job later on. I don't want to engage in those things. Those are too many things. My immediate concern is that there's something front and center of me that I don't like. It's an unpleasant emotion that I feel. And my default behavior is I want to be as far away as possible from this thing that I perceive as a threat, because as much as we have evolved, we still perceive things as rewards and as threats. So when you experience concern, when you experience worry, even when you go home, when you've had a really bad day or you're frustrated, or even, for example, when that father of that child has really frustrated you, that's the day you're telling your children, leave me alone. Right now, I need some time out. You're disengaging from the world. At the time when you should be engaging with everyone, you want time alone. You want to go to your room, you want to cook, you want an activity that removes you from the presence of other people. And it's only natural. Now, the superpower then lies in that we have different ways that we can then start growing and making different decisions when it comes to us as mothers. And the first superpower is self-awareness. I don't know if I can ask you in this group, how many of you believe they're self-aware? Let's start there. How many of you believe you're self-aware? And if you believe you're self-aware, give yourself a number. Are you 10% self-aware? Are you 90% self-aware? Are you 60% self-aware? How many do that? Pause for reflection. And what does that self-awareness then mean? Maybe someone can share. What are they self-aware about? Okay, I see there are very many, so it would be difficult to choose. But that question alone is asked in many rooms. And you'll find a lot of people say they are self-aware, but the actual statistics show that only 10%, maximum 15% are really self-aware. And the self-awareness journey is an interesting journey because most of the time we are almost like self-conscious. We know our personalities, we know our triggers. And I can say I get triggered by this and I get triggered by the other. And I know my reaction to that trigger, my default behavior. And that's, yes, the beginning of self-awareness. At any point in time, do you constantly and intentionally go back in to find out what is my emotional climate? That is emotional self-awareness, still part of self-awareness, and a very important part of self-awareness. At any time, do we examine our value system? How many of you have examined your value system? How many know their values off head? Like if I asked you, what are your values? Would you be able to tell me what your values are? And I don't mean the values that you find by being socialized. Yeah. I know we'll say I'm a prayerful person. That's my value. Value number one. Spirituality is my value. That's part of self-awareness. One of the things I find when I go to class and I ask guys what are their values, I can guarantee you 90% of the class will have integrity on that value list. But when you really examine what they meant by integrity, it's not the word integrity they wanted. Some want to share to say they are authentic. Others want to say honesty, as in there are many other things, values that describe what they want to say. But because integrity is always being floated around here, that's the word they choose. So when you say you're self-aware, do you know your values? Do you know when they changed? Because our values change. For example, if you go through a separation or a divorce, it's because there's a value system there that was not communicated, that has not been communicated, or that is causing a clash. Do you know what that value was and what those values were and what their impact are in your life? Yeah. And I can give also another example. One of the things, and I say this, I think, quite often, and I know I'm judged for it also. I have 3 core values, but 5 overall values. And the first time I ever examined my values was with a lady called Mary Mokindia. And she, we had to examine these values that I was putting there. And I had family as my topmost value there. And we interrogated it. Another exercise that I like to ask people to do is, can you sit down and account for your day? Yeah. So put 24 at the top of your sheet there. 24 hours. Now remove the hours you sleep, because we have to sleep, all of us. And if you're not sleeping, that's another problem. So let's say 8 hours. You sleep 8 hours. That means, okay, that's a bit too much, but I'm just putting it there. So you're left with 16 hours. Yeah. So account for those 16 hours. Where do you spend your 16 hours? I know maybe a chunk of it is in your business or your workplace, but it also begins to tell you also the things you value. Yeah. So looking back at my own values, it was clear to see, as much as I loved my family, it wasn't among my top values. And one of the fundamental questions that made me arrive at that is that if I had all the money in the world, would I still be sitting down and staying staying in the house and homeschooling or whatever, spending all that time with my children? And I don't think so. And I realized there's something I valued more. And that was ambition. I valued vision. I valued those things. Those things are the things that drive me. And so even the guilt that I used to feel associated with the fact that I'm making a decision to travel and do all these things because I enjoyed them, they left. Because then I realized those are the things that I value. And then it also enabled me to understand how those values, those things that I valued, my true values were impacting on my family. Yeah. And then to know when there was a boundary that could not be crossed. So to be able to put in place practices and habits that ensured, despite my biggest values, that there was things in my life. For example, my waking mornings were always spent with my children, or always spent with my children. Before they go to school, whatever breakfast they do, we sit, whatever, those, even when they were very young, I made that decision because I knew if I don't do this in the morning, I might come back at 7, 8, and I wanted them to sleep early, and our time together would be limited. And then, of course, Sundays and things like that. So putting in place now actual scheduling is what we say, scheduling things, because you know your values, you know what you're going to chase. So you have to understand, that's a part of self-awareness. Am I living perceived values? Am I living values that sound good? Or do I actually know my real, true values? Have I done the work? And I know what those are, guilt-free, because they're yours. And whether you like it or not, they are driving the decisions of what you do daily. And sometimes, that's why you'll see someone telling you, like myself, I love my family, it's one of my values, but I'm all over the place. So, even my own kids would be like, but mom, because the two are a mismatch. Yeah. It's the same way I remember another gentleman sharing about he values honesty. Yeah. It's not so much the integrity that he values. He used to put it as integrity, but what he really values is honesty. He cannot stand a person who cannot be honest. That's just the wrong thing. And what does that mean? It means that when he's handling his children, he has to be aware that when they lie, he might become that, he might be killing a mosquito with a hammer because, that's something he values so much. It provokes such intense emotions in him that sometimes it's not reasonable even to his own children because of that value of hope. And remember, for children, they also don't know. We are teaching them even with what we do. So there was somewhere where I read some time back, if you teach, how do you teach your kid anger? You show it. You get angry, you wake up and they do something and you yell. There is a lesson. It's a lesson that when things go wrong, we yell. It's just a lesson. And sometimes you're not aware of it. We are not aware of it. That's why that self-awareness is your superpower. How do you behave around the children when you're triggered? What are the things you do? And then the other part of self-awareness, what's the impact that those things have? What's the impact of my default behavior? What's the impact on my default behavior on my children, on my spouse, on my co-parenting partner, on even the people at large? And the truth of the matter is, I know it's a difficult thing to say, but when two people fight, both of them have contributed to that fight. Both of them. There's never one party that is not to blame, and there's never another party that is all to blame. Both those two people have contributed to a fight. But when we go through difficult circumstances, and some people go through them outside of marriage, some people go through them even in marriage. Like, for example, I had a very, very difficult season with my husband, and I can't share because, some of these stories you have to have permission to share. So I don't have permission to share. But it was a very difficult season. And my emotion to him was that of betrayal and disappointment. Actually, disappointment. Yeah. So what happens when when those are the emotions that are guiding the relationship between the two of you? It doesn't matter. The words that you speak, even when the children are there, unfortunately, they reflect that emotion. Yeah. And you're not aware because you're not even aware of the emotional turmoil you're going through. So your triggers trigger you, and then you have default behaviors, you have default words that you fall into. But I like to say, and I was sharing with Steve earlier on, I think it is a grieving process that we go through. And we all have to go through all the stages of grieving. And I feel like at the end of that stage, the only thing that is always left is love. Because love is the only thing that changes relationships, that changes children, that changes the outcome even of marriage and of raising children. Because with love comes the ability to accept that this is where we are, and despite everything, it is what it is. And as much as I do not agree with so many things, we are both children of God. Yeah. And we will contribute up to where we can. Sometimes you find yourself in an unfortunate situation where you have to do things that you never budgeted for, time-wise, financial-wise, whatever that is. But it is what it is. And releasing those emotions out doesn't do anyone anything, doesn't do you any help, doesn't do your children any help, doesn't do your partner or whoever it is any help, doesn't do the world around us at help. But we have to go through the process, and we have to ask for help to go through that process. You cannot go through that process alone. You have to ask for help. So some of the ways that you can develop self-awareness is by actively and intentionally starting to become aware of your emotional landscape. Yeah. So, and that is the first step towards even being a conscious parent. Yeah. So, how do you react? How does your own history influence your interactions with your children? I shared this, I think, on a Business Daily when Biko interviewed me. I said earlier on in my marriage, because my father had left, I always expected my husband to leave. And so I got into stupid arguments with him all the time when he would show signs, he would show signs like he's about to leave or he's about to do things that my father used to do. And I'd just get triggered. And I would, obviously, the words that would follow that, I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. Um, One of the things that I do or I did is whenever my mother would call me, I would refuse to pick up her call. I would dread those calls. I would look at them. I would actively not pick up my mother's call. Why? Because every time she called me, it's to tell me the problems of my brother, my sister, my who. And I didn't understand it. But now understanding, I hated picking up those calls because I knew what they were about. So the emotion there was hate. But really, was it bringing the impact that I wanted? The impact was that then my mother was feeling farther and farther away. So it meant having a courageous conversation with her and telling her, Mom, I'm a child like all the other people here. And this is what it does to me. And that's why I'm not picking up your calls. And I really want you to change. And I remember she cried, and so did I. But that was the beginning of a much better relationship between the two of us. And self-awareness allows you also to set very strong boundaries, because that's what you need. Very strong boundaries with yourself and your triggers, and even with the things that you know. If, for example, you know there's a certain activity that's going to spark strong emotions that right now, because there's a time when you'll be able to handle that emotion better. And right now, at this moment, you're not able to handle it better. So you can either choose to exercise that muscle and get yourself in that situation. But if you feel that the outcome is one that is not going to be great, especially for the children, then you have to have self-awareness will allow you to set those boundaries. And you know who the biggest culprit of breaking boundaries is? It's not the other person. It is us first. We're the ones who break our own boundaries. We're the ones who do things we know that we shouldn't do ourselves. In fact, boundary breaking, I would like to assert, is a personal endeavor. Yeah. Sometimes we believe for some reason, that things have changed, you break a boundary. Then you go back to the same position that you were. So you have to keep practicing in self-awareness, keeping the boundaries, and you know why you put them. Now, boundaries are not things like, I'm never going to talk to you. I'm never going to do this. In self-awareness, you have to be able to see the impact of the actions that you take. So if, for example, we are not actively seeking counseling for our children, what's that impact? Yeah. If, for example, we are not actively creating an environment of love between me and whoever is no longer in my life, we are not actively creating an environment of love. What is the impact of that? I don't believe divorce breeds children who are not great. I believe the lack of love does that. And the lack of love is not that we don't love our children. It's that when they see us and what we do together as a couple that has split or is in distress, that's what causes them distress. If they can see that people love each other, then they also understand that that love is extended to them. My children once went to a school, one of those class activities, and they have a question that they ask children, all the children. These children are 13 years. I don't know if that's what Steve also does, but they ask the children, does your mother or your father love you? And then, of course, the children say yes, or they say maybe, I don't know. Some children say that. And then they ask them, how do you know your mother and child? I mean, how do you know your mother loves you? And the number one reason why children know that their parents love them is because they tell them so. So again, intentionally, I remember I shared this with a group of men. I said, why should I tell my child that I love them? See, I have given them school fees. See, I've paid their school. See, I've bought them this. See, they have in the PlayStation. They should know by all those things that I do, that I love them. But no, that is not the biggest way that children know that they're loved. Children know that they're loved first by being affirmed and being told. And again, recognizing in self-awareness, how often do you tell your children, I love you? How often do you do things that demonstrate that I love you? For example, the hugs, the sitting down, the making time for them, those kind of behaviors that demonstrate I love you and that you also love other people. Yeah. Because once you love, it shows everywhere. So it is important to always reflect and journal. And I think journaling for me, if you do it, is one of the ways that you put all the things that are in your head and put them on paper, and you're able to see them for what they are. And it helps you now start to really get a deeper understanding of some of the things that you're doing. If you picked, for example, things that you feel will be the habits, that the building blocks for the habits that your family needs to adopt, how often do you do them? What's the impact that you get? So do that in self-awareness. And I think that then will, I've got a question here from Steve. The most common question we ask Candid Hope is, who are your top 3 models? And parents come bad or not at all. That's very interesting. Yeah. So the self-awareness of how your presence is as a mother, and not just the presence that I mean that you're there, you talk to them. It's very intentional towards your children. How your triggers, for how you're carrying them across, how you're bringing them into that situation, how you're behaving at that particular situation. Study yourself as if you're studying yourself for an exam. And you'll find that you'll start to make different what do you call it, different responses to some of the things that you react. So emotional regulation, another thing that you learn. Some people, it comes very easy. Some people, it doesn't. And when I mean emotional regulation, sometimes people also think that it means that you don't speak. So that's something that we're going to talk about at the other slide. But it's the fact that your emotional system is evolving to the point that you're not reacting. We react to many things. And by the way, our face reacts to many things. It has very many subtitles. Yeah. So as much as I am saying, I'm not saying something, my face has already told my children what I was saying. Maybe the father of my child walks in, my face says a lot, or even my body language says a lot. So the way that I handle myself around. There's a million things. And I think if you Google, you'll find that we are told that body language and tone of voice account for 93% of communication. So your children are reading you a lot of the times. So when you're saying, but I'm showing that I care about this man. No, you're not. You can see it from what you're doing, the behaviors that that come naturally to you from someone that you at that particular point don't really like. So you have to then be able to see how you react. Sometimes you have to get feedback from those children. So so what happens? And they'll tell you, in fact, they'll even imitate you. And then you begin to see some of the narratives that you've been building along. So learning the act of responding and not reacting, things like deep breaths. Some people count up to 10, whatever that is. And then techniques for calm. You don't have to get yourself to the space of reaction to prepare yourself for it. So these exercises like mindfulness, like waking up in the morning, of course, having your morning devotion or prayer, but practicing some mindful technique in the morning, practicing some mindful technique at lunchtime, practicing another one in the evening, you're just equipping your body to handle better a moment of stress. So that constant daily practice actually calms you so that you're calmer before you have to handle anything. So it's the techniques that you choose to keep yourself full for example, the proverbial cup. And then also the way that you talk to yourself. Do you engage in perspective taking? So when a situation has come, do you actively remove yourself and try and reframe what could be happening here? What perhaps am I not seeing here? What is the bigger picture, the why, the question? Is that something you go back to and reframe? And then how can you model for your children? I've just said something about your children learn anger from you, or maybe they'll also learn it from school, but you're the primary person who impacts the behavior. So they learn anger from you. They learn the things they see that and they see how you react to emotions as well and what you do. So how can you be a better model for your children? What are the techniques you can go to the World Wide Web and arm yourself with for your children and no one else? So mindfulness becomes a very big thing for any mother, I think, and any father for that instance. The constant practice of observing also myself in self-awareness, my reactions, my behavior becomes a very, very important thing. And you cannot do this if you do not intentionally cultivate the moment of bringing yourself to present and looking at yourself, your behaviors from a lens of non-judgmentalness. You don't judge yourself. You're on a journey of healing and of learning. And then the other thing is empathy and showing empathy. But what is empathy? Empathy, I think for me, I would describe it as the art of really understanding perspective. So a lot of the times when our children are speaking to us because they are young and we have lived this life and we know how these things end, when they're speaking to us, we already know what they're saying, what they're going to say. We already know they don't want to go to school tomorrow. I mean, we can see from a mile how that conversation is going. And this stops us from really listening because we're already judging that conversation. Yeah, we already know the answers we want to give them even before they give it to us. So empathy really is short-circuiting that and say, I want to understand this person's perspective, even if I feel I've had this story before. I want to understand the emotions behind that perspective. And with that comes the ability to then foster that trust, even for meaningless conversations, because it is those meaningless conversations that for you seem silly, but that's where the child learns about open communication. That's where your children learn that you are listening to them and you're going to be listening to them when they have bigger things now to tell you about. So also observing yourself when you call this thing active listening. There's a thing we do to our children, and my children told me it's called blue ticking. When your child is talking to you, but you're on your phone, you're on your laptop, and you keep telling them, yes, I've had. Yes, you may have had, but you are not present to that child. So you can't practice empathy. Because for empathy to happen, you have to be present to that conversation. You have to sit and listen what he said and what is unsaid. You have to ask the right questions. Tell me more. Why? How are you feeling? Yeah. And so learning to cultivate the art of empathy. I remember with my girl child, and I was so terrified because I felt that my relationship with my mother was a tumultuous one. Gosh, I think there's even a period we didn't speak for 3 years. So I was so worried, and my mother kept telling me that I'll get paid back. God will pay me back. So I was waiting to be paid back with an equally rebellious daughter. But it reached a point and said, who said I have to be paid back? Yeah. Where is it written that because your relationship with your mother was one of hell, that even you have to have the same relationship? And so I started trying to do some research around girls and their mothers. Yeah. And I got some really interesting things. Of course, friendship at a certain level and at a certain age is not an option. But as they grow into teenagehood and as they grow into young adults, then you have to start realizing where the balance is. Whether you like it or not as a mother, the girl child is a woman, and you must recognize that. And there are certain things that you will naturally rise up to in competition with her. You don't even know it, but that is the truth. Yeah. And I remember even for my daughter, there was a point she would fight for attention. Not fight, but she would try and show me that, my father, I'm my father's favorite daughter. And I thought, you know what? It is true. And if I let it be true, she feels validated. And so far, we've had a beautiful relationship. And I actively look onto all those things I read because I have said and I have told God, no, there's nowhere where it is written that this is the way it shall be because that is the way it normally is. There are people out there having beautiful relationships with their daughters. What are they doing? Empathy is a big one, because when girls get to a certain age, they are so confused, but that confusion, again, they don't know their emotions. So it comes out as anger, it comes out as flippantness. For some girls, it comes out as withdrawal. They hide themselves in the room for hours on end. However, it comes out because they are also getting to learn themselves and they don't know. And you as a parent are dying inside and wondering, what the hell are these kids doing now? What are they even up to? But learning to cultivate empathy means they start sharing their world with you. They start telling you the things that are happening. They start telling you what matters to them. Some of the things are ridiculous. But when you listen, you're better armed. Now, sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Because remember, just the same way as you had your own thought process, you had your mind, and you knew the things that you wanted to do, it's the same convictions that our children have. Yeah. And in the same vein of being a steward, we are trying to guide them and provide environments in the best way that we can that will allow them to thrive and prosper. And all they really need is a place where they can connect to this person who is supposed to be a safe space for me to be. And so you yourself, before you even go to your children, you are the one who has to start creating that safe space in yourself. You're the one who has to start feeling worthy in yourself. You're the one who has to recognize that you're the angry one. You're the one who's upset, not your children. Yeah. And you're the one who has to recognize that this anger, it is for you to deal with it because the environment it breeds is not one that gives an outcome that you want to have. So again, the third one, authentic expression. When we don't express our emotions, they have a sneaky way of coming back in ways that are not so good. Yeah. Some of them come out in words that we blurt out, we just say them carelessly. Some of them come out with withdrawal, we refuse to speak, but our body speaks for us. We bang doors or whatever that is. Or when someone walks into the room, we walk out. So you have to be able to express yourself. And when you're not happy, you have to be able to express yourself. But remember that thing I said that expressing yourself is easy. When you're angry, that is easy. But understanding how to choose your words, your emotional vocabulary, how to name your feelings before a situation has encountered. What feeling am I feeling in me? What's the emotion? Then when you name the emotion, what's the truth about that emotion? Where does it come from? We're having a visit and I'm going to see him again. I'm going to see her again. And that always makes me feel some kind of way. That's the truth. It is my emotion. I'm feeling it. What's the likely reaction I'm going to have? What's the likely behavior that I'm going to exhibit? 1, 2, 3 things. And what does that do? Is that the outcome I want to see? What's the bigger picture? So what are alternative behaviors that I can start having? Yeah. So I remember one story I can share here. My husband is very unstructured. So when we wanted to go to Mombasa, because that's where he comes from, I would ask, can you give me the time? Yeah, I want to know the time we're leaving. If it's 8 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock. And because I'd be so, focused on the time, and he wouldn't give me the time. So that time thing, by the way, blew so many things out of the water. And that whole trip, by the way, ended up being the worst place I ever wanted to be. Yeah. And we would go at each other and who knows, because of time. And then, really sitting back and saying, is that the real outcome that I want? What are the real issues here? Okay, so maybe it's a time thing. No, it's the fact that I feel like he needs to give me a time. So now there's an ego thing between the two of us. You tell me the time. You're not telling me the time. You want us to go. So thinking of the bigger picture, what I started doing was letting go of the outcome. Ask myself, is he not as invested as I am in getting us to where we are going? Is he not as invested in getting his children as safely to where we are going? So then what's my problem? So one day I woke up, as difficult as it was, and I said, we are here for when you want us to go to Mombasa. First time was so damn difficult. But with time, I mean, he gave us the time. Funny fact. But some of those things and really getting to understand how they contribute to the relationships that we have. Because, yeah, we both contribute. The two people involved are contributing. And one person sometimes has to be the bigger one, the person who sees the bigger picture, the bigger value, the person who's invested. Yeah. And with time, the other person also comes along because they start realizing that some of the things that were there as triggers for them, then you can start having more courageous conversations and you can start being vulnerable because expression, like I said, helps people set better boundaries. They help people actually make better decisions about what they do with their time, how they communicate, and so on and so forth. It's very difficult to do that with unclear emotions, with very strong emotions in the picture. And in fact, without knowing what those emotions are, it's better even to communicate, say, I feel very strongly whenever I'm around you, and I just need time to work through these emotions until a time when I'm better able to express myself to you because it's your problem. It's not the other person's problem. The other person has no problem. You're the one with the problem of authentically expressing yourself. Yeah. You're the one who needs to learn to authentically express yourself. You're the person who's in control. You're the person you can change. And when they say when you can't change a situation, then change yourself. Yeah. There was a book that used to go around. It used to say The Power of a Praying Wife. I don't know how many people have ever read it. And after you read that whole book, it just comes to the conclusion that you have to change yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's the only thing that you have control over. And changing yourself, then you have to ask yourself things like, what is my North Star? Yeah. Where do I want my children to be? What kind of children do I want to bring up? Yeah. And there's a lot of information on the wide web. And then also encouraging your children to name their emotions, when they're angry, encouraging them to express themselves, but in a way. And you don't tell a kid when they're angry, stop being angry. Why are you angry? You're always angry. That doesn't help. So you wait for them to be angry, they finish getting angry, then you sit them down and then you ask, how did that feel? What got you to that point? Yeah. And there are many frameworks of conversations you can have with children, and you teach them about their own emotion because they also don't know. Yeah. And they learn to process them even better. But you can't also get tired. So you have to invest in your own resilience. You're going to be doing that time and time again. You're going to be having the same conversation with the same child, possibly for a year, before you see any real change. And I think sometimes we get tired. We wonder, when will this ever change? And so we stop trying. But you have to keep trying and trying and trying until the change happens. So you have to arm yourself with resilience. Then relationship management. You can find a way to do this, but relationships are enhanced by ensuring that you also are a clear communicator. Now, communication, the honors of communication is in the person who communicates, not in the person who receives the communication. So when I speak to you, how you receive that message is, I should check whether you received it in the way that I intended for it to be received. I can say something today and then you think about it one way. And then when I call you, say, but I thought you meant when you said, yeah, that's actually what I thought you meant. So even that clarity of, by the way, can you do this and this and this? Someone can hear something totally different. So communication, you're the one communicating. The onus is up to you to ensure that the communication was received the way that it was intended. Because also communication and the lack of clarity in communication brings a lot of issues anywhere, at work, in relationships with children. That one area of communication is very key. And I talked about boundaries. Boundaries are there to keep relationships, whether it is your ex, whether it is your current, whether it is at work, whether it is with your best friends. And in fact, with best friends and people who've been there for a long time, they already know our boundaries where we can't cross. So establishing healthy boundaries protects you. And establishing also healthy boundaries around your own energy and around your well-being allows you to show up. So one of the things that you absolutely have to do in terms of building yourself is, what are the items for you need to give yourself, yeah, to do that thing that grows your resilience? Because another thing about, someone was talking about it, the one thing that you absolutely have to have is resilience. Because I think it was someone who was sharing in a session I was in, they were saying, you wait a long time, you keep putting in a long time. Burnout is very easy. You get tired. Why are these things happening? And so when you get tired, then the old habits come back. Yeah. The way that the ones that you knew are not productive, they come back. Yeah. And you start leaving them because it's easy to leave them. But you need to invest in yourself. The morning rituals you have. What do you do in the morning for yourself? You wake up, what are the rituals there that set you up for the day? What are your evening rituals that fill you up for whatever other time? So that you don't live as this angry person. You know, we are always branded as angry mothers. You're always angry. Every time you're angry. When you wake up, you're angry. Yeah. Because we are not really self-managing properly. So self-management is important. So, and part of self-management is being able to set up your boundary. I carve out a time myself. I was saying I am an anxious being. So being an anxious being, one of the things that I have to do, like medicine, is I have to absolutely work out. I have to have a workout regime in the morning. And that is medicine. And it is a boundary that I cannot cross. Means I have scheduled it. It has to, that time is mine, unless there's something else that is so important, but it is my time in the morning. I will run. I will maybe go to the gym. Maybe I will swim, but I need that time to be able to function properly. And what's that for you? Set that boundary, don't cross it. Give it to yourself. And then leverage on your support system. What kind of support system do you have? What are the things that are being spoken around you? If you're with people who are constantly trashing, whether men or women, whatever that is, that's the experience you're going to have. And that's the mindset you're going to carry. I don't believe that any person, man or woman, is trash or is useless, and so on and so forth. And I believe even when we use those words, we forget that we also have the same men and the same women as our cousins, our children, our brothers, our sisters. There is no one here who deserves such a name. And there's no one useless in this world. And getting names that really describe them in a better light. If the relationship didn't work, it didn't work. And there's difference in venting, and there's also another difference in what I call toxic bitching sometimes. So you have, where are you? And what are you speaking with your friends? What words are you sharing? Who are they? This support system is very, very important to you as a person. So resilience and optimism, the practice of gratitude, yeah, the visualization of a hopeful future, reframing challenges. But for me, some very simple fundamental ones that are never taught. Enough sleep. Yeah, sleep is medicine. Do you sleep enough? If you don't sleep enough, chances are you're not going to be able to refrain from that that's what you call it, when someone from snapping at someone. If you haven't slept enough, you're going to snap at them. You're going to get into a fight just because. So when it gets a bit difficult, you're going to get into a fight. Yeah. Do you eat well? Yeah. Do you walk or exercise or do something for your body? Those are some of the things. Walk 10 steps, 10,000 steps, all those things are very, very important for you. Do you have relationships that work? Do you anchor yourself in a spiritual practice, whatever that is? So the self-management is important because it allows you to plug into your journey for the long haul. Yeah. If you can't be resilient, then even all these things we're talking about, you can't practice empathy. You'll be too tired. Actually, I'm listening to who now? What are you telling me? Go to bed. Go to bed. Tomorrow we're going to talk about it. When I'm ready, we'll talk about it. You can't. You don't have time. You never have time. If you don't time manage properly, you're always busy. So when your kids are talking to you, you're on your laptop or on your phone responding to a problem or something or the other. So you don't have time. Yeah. So you can't do these things of empathy, let me speak and teach my children how to name and validate their emotions, all those things. But they have to be a priority for you. And so you first have to take care of yourself. So then you can show up to these conversations and you can be present to children. So for raising emotionally intelligent children, teach them the vocabulary. Ask them to tell you what they feel, how they feel. In fact, when we teach children, we ask them, where do you feel the feeling? And they're still feeling the feeling. Allow them to express it safely. Let them speak about it. Don't cut them short. Yeah, when they're trying to share this, listen to them. Then be the model for conflict resolution. Yeah, raised voices is not conflict resolution. Talking things out, even with them, when we've gotten into a conflict, what is that? What can you teach them? Where can you get it? Yeah. Um, Validate emotions and encourage problem solving. When a child has done something, I remember one of the things that I used to try to do when my children were young was to teach them to be independent. I used to say at that time that if I'm traveling this much, then my kids need to be able to take care of themselves. But you know, the hardest thing you can do as a parent is to sit and watch a child button up their blouses. So they button them the wrong way. Then your natural reaction, obviously, is to want to button the blouses. So you sit, you wake them up at 5 because you know it's going to take half an hour to button blouses. But it is essential because the kids are learning how to solve their own problems. So it is you who actually has to stop yourself from buttoning their blouses so that they can learn how to button their blouses. It is you who has to stop yourself from washing or bathing them. And you know they're doing it the wrong way, but man, you have to just sit. It is you when they're ranting and raving who has to wait for them to finish their rant and rave and say all those words. Then you sit them down and say, okay, so now what did that solve? And you can have a meaningful conversation with your child about what they were feeling and why it was important at that time. So EI, for me, and especially when we teach our kids how to name emotions, they learn a very important thing that we didn't know, which is emotional management, which is healthy for anyone. Because a lot of the times, I think we get stuck and we don't know what we're doing because we can't name these things. We can't really understand how we're feeling because we can't name it. Yeah. And when we start getting these skills, we can see them in the home. We can see that we're getting better at conflict management. We're teaching our children to communicate better. You are asking them back, did you hear what I said? Do you know what I meant? What did you hear? Then you're teaching them and they're practicing through you. When they feel more secure in their relationship with you, that you listen to them, that you're investing time in them, when they feel that the house is not a place of bombshells, that there is enough matureness, even for themselves, they try and practice it. Then they reap from the benefits of high EI, which is children with high EI, or children not with high EI really, but children who are learning. They get better at being resilient. They get better at achieving professional and academic success. And they understand, for example, when they're told, does my mother or father love me? They say yes. And who's my role model? They might not name you as a role model, but at least you can see the reason why. But why does my parent love me? Because, yeah, they tell me so all the time. And they also get better at regulating their own emotions, even when they grow as adults. So that's my short presentation. As you can tell, I can speak for days on the topic of emotional intelligence and just basically what it does. But it is my sincere hope with the little that I have shared today that I have spoken to someone and we have gotten some insights from our discussion today. So I think for the next 5 minutes, I don't know if that is enough for some questions and answers. If you want to ask a question or to share, I definitely put it on the chat. But one of the things that I have come after all these studies and gone around and done, taught, even been through my own self-reflection, I have come to one fundamental conclusion. And that conclusion is that it is all just love at the end of the day. It's a difficult one to do, but I think it is all just love in many, many ways and forms. And love is patient, love is kind, love is gentle, love doesn't keep wrongs. You know, that thing that we talk about. That is where you want to get yourself to. Yeah. And once you get there, it's a process. Once you get there, it's not that you're permissive. You know, guys say, so that means anything goes. No, 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 no. It's just that you begin to understand that you are in control of a lot of things, but you don't have to be the reason why other things don't happen. You can be an enabler. You can be a source of light, even in the darkest of corners. You can be a source, even in a place where the relationship seems so dark. You can be that source of light that can change everything. I think I want to hand it back to Steve, and if there are any questions, I'll take them. Steve, back to you.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for that passionate presentation. I would want to open it up. If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat box or you can raise up your virtual hand. One or two people before we finish. Or any reaction, feel free to put it in the chat box. I'm checking around to see any hand that is up. Any reaction?
And see there's someone there who said, thank you for the session. It was worth my time. The closing eyes doesn't work for me though. We'll work on letting go. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for that. There are various forms of mindfulness. Prayer is a form of mindfulness, by the way. There's active mindfulness, and by active mindfulness, you can be doing a repetitive action, but you're doing it intentionally because that will allow you to process the thoughts that are going on in your head in a manner that is more productive. So, for example, some people, when they're brushing, they can be washing something very small and little, and they're brushing, and they're doing it intentionally so that they can then be able to go through the thoughts. That's another practice of mindfulness. I encourage you, just go into the World Wide Web. There are so many things that fall under mindfulness. So someone asks here, how do you, okay, Belinda, your hand is open. Your hand is up, sorry.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm so glad I joined in. And my question is a little bit packed. So, where do we get the balance as a single mom of a boy and a child and a girl, pre-teens? Where do we get the balance between the mother being the provider, the protector, the disciplinarian, the advisor, the friend? How best can one navigate that very delicate and unclear path? Because I find sometimes it's hard to do all those things at once. And so some of them will be quietly will be let go. What I mean is you might not be a disciplinarian and at the same time be a friend. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in. I feel like when both parents are bringing up the children, there's usually that one parent who is so much on the disciplinarian side and one who is so much on the friend side, or otherwise something close to that. But I find it a little bit of a challenge when it's one person doing it. How best can we, okay, I'm speaking for the bush, but how best can we be able to like put all those things together and bring the best outcomes out of these preteens, considering it's a different generation from the rest of us? They do things differently. Um, okay. I think I'm quite clear if you can
Okay.
hear what I said.
Okay. Okay, thanks. On the question of balance, I don't know whether we actually ever achieve balance. I think the more you chase balance, the more it eludes you. That's just my thought. The more it seems to disappear, because it's a concept that we have. that that's what I think, that you must have this, perfect balance of life. But I don't think that is life. In fact, if you look at the seasons, even the seasons are not balanced. Sometimes we have so much rain, and sometimes there's so much sun, and sometimes there's so much cold. Like now, the seasons have times. Yeah. So, what I think it is, at least for me, what it has been, is acknowledging that some seasons in your life are going to be tumultuous, and they're going to have so much that they throw at you, whether it's work or whatever. There's so many things that are going to come at you. When I was younger, I read a book by Steve Covey. I think it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I've read it 3 times after that. And it speaks to me each time differently. But one of the things that has never changed for me is that they said a changeless core thrives in a changing world. And a changeless core still goes back to you, the person. What, like I said, are your values? What are your routines? What are your habits? If you look at anyone's day who's highly effective, they have certain components of their day that doesn't change. Yeah, because they know the day will change itself anyway. So why don't you put things for yourself that anchor you back? So first, my advice is for any parent, scheduling. You know the way in the office you schedule things. You're very good at scheduling meetings. You're very good at scheduling calls and things like that. Get scheduling for yourself. Schedule things that you know, if you add them up times 100 by the end of the year, they'll have made a positive difference in your relationship, either with your child or even with yourself. So scheduling, for example, deciding that I'm going to spend mornings this time when I'm around with children is just maybe 30 or 40 minutes. But if I add them up, I know somewhere in the grand scheme of things, I'm hoping they'll amount to something. Yeah. So you cannot control so much, but you can control your time when you have it. So if you want to get to know your children better, schedule your time. Is it going to be dinner? Sit. At that scheduling, you will know what the problems they're going through. You will know which child needs a beating very soon because of how they're going. Um, and I think even things like scheduling time to go sit with the teachers, understand what's happening with my children, the same way that you schedule for other things that are important to your life, scheduling the salon and things like that. Even self-care, schedule self-care. It's once a week. It doesn't change. It's at this time. It's part of your routine. That way, then you can be able to be very agile in the other things that happen in life. When your child now becomes a bit errant, you won't say you don't know the children. I don't think when children are very young, we are their friends. I don't even think but you can read books. I don't know. There are very many versions out there. I think that is the point you're forming children. So you have to be very clear on what values that you bring in that bit. You have to be set very clear boundaries with them of do's and don'ts. And setting those boundaries then helps you understand when discipline is required, because you cannot not be there when discipline is required. Then that means you're letting a boundary get loose. So you want to be there as often as not, as often as you can. You won't always be there, but as often as you can, to reinforce those things that you know that your child must have someone guiding them. So for me, first thing, schedule. There are seasons that will be tumultuous. What will keep you sane are some of the habits that you have developed with time around your children, around your eco environment, around your discipline. But you have to do the hard work of sitting down and defining that clearly for yourself. Yeah. What do I mean? For example, my my last 2 children, they wanted to do music, but they were very erratic about it. So one day I just sat down and I told them, you decide, is it music or is it not music? Because these instruments are expensive. And so we decided, yes, this is music. And from that point on, it was my job as a mother, whether they wanted to, whether that was the day that they were going to cry and tell me, but I had to show up. I had to show up for that moment. I could have as well not been there and not taken told them, okay, fine, this music is becoming a bit too hard for us. I can see you guys don't want to do it. What else do you want to do? No. So the days I didn't feel like, we went for music. The days we felt like, we went for music. Now they book their own lessons. So I just had to take them through that period when they were not unsure. So I have to be resilient in myself first. And now that they're older, they schedule their own time, they do their own music, they are performing here and there and there. But you have to be the one who does it. So we scheduled the time for music, it was focused. We resiliently focused on it through thick and thin until it finished, but we scheduled. Yeah. We scheduled practice time. They had practice time. Sometimes with me, other times I wasn't around. So again, I think they say again for us mothers, one of the best career decisions we ever make is your nanny. Yeah. Who is your nanny? Your nanny is another career decision that you make. Because your nanny also determines a lot. Do they have the same value as you? So that is what I would say. I think that has helped me navigate very many scheduling, scheduling, but it also means for you, you have to be clear. Read books, go to the World Wide Web. I've seen here there's a book, how children raise parents, the art of listening to your family. There's so much out there. If you're curious, just read. Distill 2, 3 things for you that are important for your family. Yeah. Then put them in activities, operationalize them. This is how they look like. Then stick to it. Don't waver. Don't waver at all. Stick to it. Stick to the long game. No matter what, stick to that long game. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Vicky. I think I've picked a few things that are so practical. Thank you so much.
Yeah. There's the thing of balance is not there. Just keep your rocks very clear to you. Because life is life. And especially if you're working mother, you're supporting the children. It's no excuse for not spending time for your children. You can find time. Do that audit I said for 24 hours to find out where your time goes. Then in that time, schedule an hour. Even if it's the only hour you can give those children, schedule it. Even if it's 30 minutes that you can give those children, schedule that time. However it looks like. And stick to it. Within a year, you've actually spent more time than you would have if you didn't schedule that time.
Thank you, Vicky. And there was silence in the house. Any
I know
other?
because
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying I know, but I think it is definitely something that overwhelms you, and it is so easy to get lost in it, and to just say, you know what, let's just go with the flow, but you don't know where the flow is going to take you. Yeah.
Very true. Vicky,
Yes.
what's the age of your firstborn?
Uh, he's turning 26 in 20 days.
So you're a parent of a Gen Z.
All of them are Gen Zs, by
All
the
of
way.
them.
Yeah, I have 3 boys and 1 girl. So yeah, so turning 28, 26, then I have a 21-year-old. Is he 21? I think he's 21. I think he's 21. Then I have the 2 that I call my twins, 17 and 15.
Beautiful. I love the way
Yeah.
you're talking out of experience, that finding that balance is really difficult. And of course, the experience with your teens and the young adult, especially with the girl child.
Yes, the
Yeah,
girl child.
yeah, quite interesting. It's a big one. That question keep coming to us. It's a very big
About
one. On
the girl child or the balance?
no, the girl child who is in the adolescent stage.
You have to be very intentional.
Yeah,
I talked to mothers whose relationship with the girls I admired. I asked them, what do you do? I sought information. I looked. So you have to also you have to want that relationship enough to look and arm yourself with what you need. So be curious. There are ways out there that people have tried, and they're willing to pass them down. I have a very good friend of mine. She's much older than me. Her son got married. And so my question, because now my son is in that phase, I'm not sure. I was like, how do you know she's the right one? And he told me it's not about the right one. You make it your business to know the girlfriends in your boy's life by being that person who meets them and doesn't judge them and provides that environment. And then from there you can be able to see. Um, and they'll bring them to you. Yeah. So I'm learning that from her. I'm learning now she's married. She has a daughter-in-law. So I want to have a beautiful relationship with my daughter-in-law. I don't want to have one that fights. So I see the way she intentionally invests in lunches with her daughter-in-law. I can see her intention. That's someone that can mentor you even if it's from far, even if it's not from near. And also there's a lot of information. So if that's where you want to be, there's a lot of information out there for you and you can do better.
Thank you. Anyone last question?
See, there's a question from Winnie. Do I know Winnie? Winnie, do I know you?
Yes, Vicky, you know me. And I know you.
I think we know each other.
And this is beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So my question is, unpack for me a bit on empathy. I think empathy is, for me, I have found that it is misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
And the new thing, and I have put that in the chat, but it's really burning for me. The new thing for me with empathy is that actually connecting on a deeper level is the right thing to do, because I think for our children, when we show them that empathy and begin to ask questions, we seem then to get into a space they don't want to. So it sounds to me like how we do the empathy is what is the difference here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unpack that for me a bit more.
Okay, there's a video by Brené Brown. Have you ever watched it on empathy?
No.
So I'll put the link on the chat. It's called Empathy and Why It's Different from Sympathy or something like that. I'll look at it. And it's a very simple video. But it talks about what empathy is. It is taking the other person's perspective as their truth. Yeah. So when Winnie is sharing about empathy, that's your truth. That's how you see the world. You know, we all see the world from our own lenses, including your children. And then staying out of judgment. Remember when I was saying your child is talking, you're already judging. You know, you can tell where they're going with that story. Yeah. Even at work, you know, when someone comes to tell me something, it's very easy for me to judge. I was late because I'm already judging. I have not listened to the full story. Yeah. And then it talks about recognizing emotion in another individual and communicating that. I sense that you feel troubled. But it talks about the difference between sympathy and empathy is that in sympathy, we want to offer help. Yeah. And it's well-intentioned. We want to offer help. We want to make things better. So that's why we say things like, well, yeah, at least you still have a job. When someone tells you I'm having a bad time at work, we don't want to listen to the whole conversation about, like, just be thankful, yeah? Let's just give thanks to the Lord that you still have a job. You know, so you're trying to make it better, but rarely nothing makes anything better. Or this thing you say, bora uhai, you know, you do know how many people have not eaten and you're not eating that food that's on your plate. Huh? You get what I mean? So empathy is really the difference of that, because when someone shares something, the thing that's activated in you is curiosity. And I'll give an example. My first son went through a very difficult experience, very difficult experience. And I mean, he actually got beaten up. And it was a very difficult time for me as his mother. And I mean, at that time, I even used to have nightmares. And people would call me. And I remember some of them would give me stories, you know, Akipole, you know, by the way, let me tell you what happened to my son. Tell me all the stories. This is sympathy. Another one would come and tell me, oh, yes, sorry. You're feeling, oh, yeah, we are so sorry. You know, now when you say, oh, yes, sorry, I'm feeling pitied. Yeah. you're not attempting to understand me. But the people, and at some point, I stopped picking up calls. And that is sympathy. We are so sorry. Yeah? And others saying, you should tell him not to be doing those things. He should not walk around at night. Like I need to hear that at that time. Like I don't even know it. Yeah. But the people who got through to me, remember one of my friends just came and she sat with me. She actually brought a bottle of wine and some njugus and we cooked together. We never even talked about the incident. She just sat there. And when I was able to, I opened up. And in fact, for me, that was the beginning of my understanding of what empathy really is. Because when I was able to, I opened up to her and I started talking about it. And I think it was at that time that I actually cried. I didn't need anyone to tell me what to tell my son. I didn't need people to tell you I'm sorry. I just needed someone to hold that space for me. And so with time, then we talked about it. With time, I was able to even laugh about it. Now doesn't give me so much grief anymore. But I was in a grieving process and I needed space. So even with our children, we get tired of waiting for them to share things with us, but they're not ready. So holding that space and being that person who is open and there and waiting, okay, I'm not going to push you to tell me, but yeah, okay, so I've sensed there's like a wall. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's not even talk. Yeah. Because at that time, the thought process that is going, they haven't trusted you. They want to grow that trust, or they haven't trusted you with this particular problem, It could be this particular problem. But with time, they come. For example, my daughter, she does well in school, but she's also, she inherited a bit from me. She does a lot in school. And so what that has happened is that the teachers then give her so much more to do. And she was beginning to struggle. But in her mind, she's like, well, my mom did all these things, so why am I struggling? So she'd come, she'd talk to me, and then I'd sense that sometimes when she's talking about school, she'd have balancing tears. So one day, and I would invite her to my room, we'd sit and talk about everything. And then one day she just broke down and she said, Mom, it's too much. Yeah. It's too much, Mom. It was, and at that point, I just listened, said, it's too much. And I listened. It was nothing serious, for me, but it was very easy for me to tell her, only that. I think they're telling you, what, can you go back? They told you to go for swimming. Swimming is the easiest thing to do. But listening and understanding the kind of distress she was in, I said, okay, fine. We are not going back to school, but I can't handle this. And I think I need to take you to see a counselor. And she said, fine, why, Mom? Because I think there may be some things you need to share with her around. I didn't even know myself. I just felt, at that point, I felt maybe I didn't have the skill set. And when she went there, the conversation was around boundaries and setting of boundaries and the fact that she's not setting boundaries. And that now she's enjoying school. She's back, she's enjoying school. And ability to just give that space, not from a point of that I am a lax mother. I'm one of the most strict mothers you'll ever find. And it was in my nature at that point to tell her, listen, you're stronger than this, Bobo. You're much stronger than this. You can do anything you put your mind into. But just listening and understanding that this is not a child who comes to do all these things. That's the place of empathy. Not as easy as sympathy, but that's a place of empathy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As we come to a conclusion, I hope we are not locking out any question. But Vicky, once again, would you share what you do and how people can plug into what you do?
Okay. At first, I can see there's a very beautiful comment from Becky about being a mother of a 25-and-a-half-year-old young adult girl. Well done. The secret to creating healthy relationships is when they're young and remain intentional and maintain it. All the best to your daughter. May God bless her and you as well. So I'm in that space, as I said, we run a company called Profiles International. I do believe that Liz has shared a few of the things that we do. We manage, we train and facilitate conversations around emotional intelligence, but we also train for other things, etiquette, branding. We train for leadership, for management. We also speak to teams and we help teams work together. We do personality assessments such as this one, the Everything Disc Catalyst. And basically, it's part of the self-awareness journey, understanding how you show up as an individual and how your style influences the way that you see work. My style is dominant if you talk about the disc, and that comes with its advantages. It also comes with its disadvantages. It means that there's certain things that I do that are positive, certain things that I don't. So these are the things that we do. So for you as an individual and also for organizations, we work with them to help them understand each other better so they can be better teammates. And we also certify practitioners and trainers to do the same. So we run a certification on emotional intelligence for people who would like to, either get that extra accreditation on EI because that's something that they teach, or who would like to start being a facilitator in conversations around emotional intelligence. And we also then facilitate certifications in various other assessments. So that's what I would say. We train and certify professionals, trainers, facilitators to deliver programs. We also work with organizations as well to do the same. And then the rest is on our website, www.profileinternational.co.ke. And right now, I am going to share the Brené Brown video. Let me look for it.
Thank you. As you look for it, we want to thank all of us for making time to be here. We will have many of these sessions, so this is not the only one, on various topics. And when the dads, okay, I'm not sure whether they were the dads, but at least close to 10 people saw this flyer and asked, what about fathers? So, and a few reached out who do not want to be known. There's a mom who asked me a tough question. Do you believe dads can be single? I didn't have an answer to that. But we are going to organize one for the dads, and we will be sharing that flyer out so that you can help us reach out to any dad who is willing to come and say, hey, this is my space. I take ownership of my space and I'm willing to learn and know how to navigate what comes with my current situation. So you have already shared the video there?
Yes, I've shared the video. The link is there.
Chat box.
Yes.
And for the moms or parents who are here, we run mentorship programs and we have some coming up for this holiday. If your child, we highly recommend that you send your children to VBS, especially if your church has a good VBS. Please let them bond with that community. But in a scenario you are not able to for a reason or another, we will have mentorship program, life skills mentorship program, which is Bible-based for them. We usually do that every holiday. If you're away from Nairobi, we are based in Nairobi, then you can do virtual. So we have virtual sessions. So we have the virtual options, and then we have the physical options for those who will be able to do that. How do you get that information? We have shared a WhatsApp link in the chat box. So if you'd want to be part of what's happening, plus the many other sessions that we have on parenting, feel free to join so that you're updated on what's happening. And Vicky confirmed that you're available to be invited by a church, a chama, wherever, to talk about what you're passionate about.
Yes, I would be. So you can reach out and we can have this conversation. As I said, the more we speak about it, the more we sometimes, for example, debunk things like empathy, EI, self-regulation. So appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And if you want to reach out to Vicky, that is the office line. So when you call that office line projected there, you will be directed accordingly. So you can take a screenshot of it, or you can write the number down. Feel free to reach out. Plus many more that Profiles International could be doing that we did not mention here in the interest of time. When you have a one-on-one with them, you're able to know how you can get help if you need that particular help, or how you can partner with Profile International. Otherwise,
I'd like to say you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. I'm very active on my LinkedIn. Also active on Instagram, not so much, but my LinkedIn, I'm quite active. I put my email address there. And yeah.
Beautiful. Winnie Mbugwa, would you move a vote of thanks?
That's a nice one. Okay, so I'll let you know how I know Vicky. Vicky and I went to the same school, to the same high school. So we know each other those many years. I don't think we have met much after that, but we have done activities where she's in or and I'm not, or where I'm in and she's not. She was my junior. I think with Vicky, I was 1 year ahead of you.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yes, you're a 94.
Yes. Well,
Yes,
yeah,
I am a
yes,
93.
true.
And so I'm to my vote of thanks. It's really lovely to see the work that you're doing, Vicky. I think it's amazing that you can come from a full course. You know how hard we worked to get to university and all that, and go and achieve your architecture, and then figure out that purpose is to love people, because all you have done for us is love on us this evening. And the courage and the joy of sharing, pouring yourself out, sharing your own personal experiences, really you have sharpened us tonight. And it's I know we are always lovely to be associated from school, but you don't know how proud I am to be associated with you. And really, really thank you that enriching how we relate with our children is what is your passion right now, and that you can take your time and do that. For me, at the end of your conversation, I have thought, oh my God, one would pay so much for just this session, even with just you, Vicky, not with anybody else. And so grateful that you are open and candid enough to come and tell us this. And thank you to Steve and to Candid Hope. Thank you for opening up this conversation and allowing us to plug in and learn. Thank you. Been an insightful night, and I'm grateful. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm trying to check whether there was a gentleman here, but I can't find any. Okay. Sawa. Interestingly, when we normally have sessions for gentlemen, ladies ask, I just want to listen so that I know how to help my man, who I'm sure will not be able to attend. Quite interesting. So thank you so much, dear ladies, for choosing to be here this evening. We don't take it for granted. As we have said, more of these sessions are coming up, and we'll keep you updated on how we can plug in and continue to build ourselves. Thank you so much, Vicky, once again. We cannot, I don't know, words. We lack words to express how grateful we are that you could find time. I have never met Vicky physically, by the way, but I have been following Profiles International, and I've attended a few sessions. But I have researched, Vicky, let me just tell you the truth. I know you are shocked that I got your full profile and asked you on the flyer to just confirm. I have researched, and I was convinced that Vicky needed to speak to us and will continue speaking to us whenever she is available to do so. So thank you so much for being kind enough. So that's the power of social media. We met on Instagram. So I got her number today. We have actually been chatting on Instagram. But one thing that affirmed my, made me more optimistic is the fact that somebody saw the flyer and shared and said, I know Vicky. I have met her somewhere. She's such a great lady in what she does. I know she will do a good
Thank
job.
you.
Then I said, oh God, thank you. So, Vicky, just to let you know that your testimony has gone ahead of you. And one of these days, you need to speak to us about navigating career. You know, you did architecture, but now you are here. But now you are here at Profiles International. Very
I
passionate.
did architecture and I practiced. I practiced for 15 years before I came to this side of life.
I
So
know there are, I know
yeah,
there are people here who are in that space where, God, I have done this thing and I don't think this is what I was shaped to do. How do I transition? How do I navigate all these things? And of course, the emotional intelligence that comes with such transitions.
yeah.
So thank you, Vicky. We'll talk more and see how
Yes.
we can continue to build ourselves. And with that, I would want us to end this session. And I would want to request a volunteer to pray for us so that we just log out. Again, for Candid Hope, we are on Instagram. Just check Candid Hope. Facebook, Candid Hope. You'll get us there. Any volunteer to pray for us? You can just raise up your hand. Thank you. Glory, please go ahead.
Okay, shall we breathe together and pray?
Okay.
Thank you, mighty Lord, King of glory, come to this hour. Thanking you, Lord, for the good conversation that we had, Almighty Father. May you help us, O King of glory, whatever that has been shared to us, Almighty Father, we can incorporate it in our lives, Almighty Father. And also, O God, so that we can also share with others, Almighty Father, that might be feeling and might be lacking hope, Almighty Father, so that we can encourage them, Almighty God. And also, God, we thank you, Lord, for this initiative, Almighty Father. We commit Stephen to you, Almighty Father, for organizing this event, Almighty God. And also each and every person who has participated, Almighty Father. May you continue nurturing Vicky with knowledge and wisdom, Almighty God, and understanding, Almighty Father, as she continues to nurture others, Almighty Father. May you be with them, Almighty God. Even the organization, God Almighty, we commit it unto you, Almighty Father. We commit each and every person who was joined tonight, Almighty God. May you bless them, Almighty Father. May you bless even our families, O King of glory. Because God, you are God who never fails. You are God who lives, Almighty Father. We trust upon you, King of glory. And we know that, God Almighty, the path might seem to be very sloping, but we trust upon you, God, that you are going to strengthen us always, Almighty Father. That we shall not feel as if we have been forgotten, O King of glory. We pray that, God Almighty, as we enter our praises of blessed Almighty Father, we cover ourselves with the precious blood of Jesus. Despite of us being online, mighty God, we know that God, your presence is always with us, always. It is through the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, we do pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, everyone, and God bless all of you. Bye. For those who are asking about recording, yes, we have. We will share it tomorrow.